Okay, one of the last things we have to do before we can go back in the water, which is tomorrow morning, we're going to be floating again, it's been a while, is get the propeller on. And this is our propeller at the moment. There's a few bits down here. It's a Flexofold 3-blade folding prop. So basically there's the hub, the 3 blades which are numbered 1, 2 and, whoops, 1, 2, 3. And the bits and pieces. So over here we have the saildrive all spruced up, 4 coats of epoxy and 2 coats of high-speed hard anti-fouling paint, and we're ready to assemble everything. So let's get going and see if we can knock this off in 30 minutes. First thing is, being aluminium in the water, they can corrode. And to stop that corrosion we have anodes. This is a zinc anode, and zinc corrodes more quickly than aluminium, so it's critical, absolutely critical, that these anodes are replaced before they wear out too much. So we're putting a new anode on. I'll show you the old one in a minute. And it's because it works electrically, it's critical the anode is in electrical contact with the aluminium of the saildrive leg. So a nice brand shiny new anode goes on. So this is the brand shiny new anode. It took a bit of finding this one because this saildrive is not a normal one. It rotates through 360 degrees. It doesn't have reverse gear. Forward and reverse for this thing is flipping through 180 degrees. It just spins around and points that way if you want to go in reverse, and points sideways if you want to go sideways. We don't often use that feature, but it's there for really tricky berths where going in sideways is the difference between going in and not going in and finding somewhere less ideal. Here's the old one, and that's what it's been looking like for a few years, but it's started to be nibbled away, and although this is good for probably another year or two, I thought it's time. It is time for a new anode. The next thing is the hub. This collar goes on first, and then the hub. And the collar basically spaces the hub out from the anode. But before we do all that, we've got to put some nice blue stuff on there. We have some nice Grasso blue Pneumatica, so blue marine grease. Must be good, it's blue. It's probably more satisfying than brown or yellow grease. And I like to use a decent amount. Beautiful blue grease, beautiful. It's sticky, but it's not as sticky as the other stuff I'm going to be putting on. So the theory with marine grease is it doesn't wash out, it's resistant to wash out, and therefore it does what it's supposed to do for longer. So on with the collar. Bit more blue. Always feels good to have a well lubricated collar slipping over a shaft, so that goes on there. And plenty of grease on the splines. Beautifully machined. I love precision engineering, and the machining on this is just one of the delights in my world anyway. It's you can see all the little machining marks where they've made it perfectly round, and then they've cut the splines. I love industry. Out of the ground, another example of out of the ground. All that we're working on here, the grease, the spline, the bronze propeller, all came from dirt. Different sorts of dirt out of the ground, and some clever man or woman realised that that could be turned into something useful. Metals and plastics, and in this case, pretty blue grease. Okay, on with the hub. The whole thing weighs about 15, 16 kilograms. This is a fair part of the weight. So that now, a bit more to help it on its way, slides on. Very smoothly. Yes, it's nice. Good. Okay, so that's in. Now we've got to keep it in, so we put a big nut on there. A bit more grease. So we'll give it a bit of a dollop. It all gets a bit messy, but we will clean this up. So this way we don't get any issues with it not wanting to come off when we want it to come off. So how do we make sure it doesn't come off when we don't want it to come off? That bit comes in a second. I'll just clean up a bit here. So we have to torque this up really well. Which means really tight. And then a bit more. Just to be sure. Okay. And this is the locking tab. So to stop that nut we just put in there unscrewing, there's a locking tab which screws on with another nut. So we now bend that tab over in there against the flats of the big nut. At least this will flatten it out. Okay, that's flat. So the side of that tab is now bent over the flat face of the big nut, which is retaining the hub. So I'm now going to flatten that down so that it really is in contact with the nut. Okay. And the other side of this tab has to bend up against the flat of this retaining nut. I'm sure there's a better tool to do this with. Oh, for a set of pin punches. So that flat is retained and the other flat is retained down there. Okay, so it's now retained. I can feel those precision gears turning up inside the leg and into the engine coupling inside the boat. So we're finished with the lovely blue grease. Now we're going to this grease, which is grasa blanco alo zinco, so a white grease containing zinc. This is really quite sticky stuff, and this provides greater protection against washout. This is more a lubricating grease. This is obviously lubricating, it's grease, but it's sort of a soapy stuff, and the theory is that this retains, it hangs onto surfaces and doesn't wash out, and this area being very much exposed to the sea as the blades fold in and out is the more critical area. In there is good, doesn't really, it gets wet but it doesn't get any washout. This does. So we're now going to assemble the blades. I've marked them 1, 2, 3, doesn't matter what the numbers are, the main thing is that the blades go where they're supposed to go. I've given the thing a light buff. It's not polished as I'd like it to be, but without a proper workshop that's as good as I can do with a hand drill and a wire brush. So blade number 1 goes in position number 1, like so. And what holds it in is this pin. And what holds the pin in is another screw which goes through there. Through there. No, through here. So the screw needs to align with this machined groove as we push the blade in and hammer the pin back in. So lots of grease and a bit of tapping. Grease, we like grease, keeps things moving. We did talk about precision earlier, didn't we? This is real precision. It is such a snug fit, it's just beautiful the way it goes together. Not too tight that it won't fit, and certainly when it's in, there's no chance of any slop. I want to see more grease in there than that. We'll wipe away the excess. That's better. Okay. So the hole's about there, so feeling for the hole. Got it. We're in. We are in. So that pin's just going in nicely, and I'm going to be looking straight down the hole until I see that little cut out just in the right position. It's just coming up now, whether you can see it in that dark hole. There it is, there. So now we put one of these special, whatever you do, don't lose it, machined socket head retaining screws in the hole. If we lost this, we'd have to order another one. Reminder to self, order a spare or two next time I order some anodes. We put that in, and that retains the pin. It's been nicely designed. I love the elegance of design on these props. So with a tapered head on it, the more we lock it in, the more that pin is brought into perfect alignment. Okay, it's in. And what keeps that in? There's another plate that goes over here that makes sure that doesn't come out. Everything is retained, everything. So we do that another 2 times, and then we have a folding prop. And the trick is to get all these teeth aligned with each other. There it goes, it's in. So the last part is to put this plate on, which holds the anode, which protects the propeller. It's just 3 socket head screws which surround the teeth of the folding prop. I'll put a bit more grease in there. So this is medium strength, Loctite 243. Hopefully you can hear it's above the sound of the pressure washer. The plate now goes on. And last but not least, the new anode. Unfortunately we don't have a new anode. This was left out in our luggage because we had a weight problem. So this is the erosion from 1 year. You can see how the anode's being eaten away, which is better than the propeller being eaten away. I'd like to change it, but I just don't have a new one. New one comes next year, so this will just have to make do. So this goes on here. We line the holes up to take the heads of those. We screw it in again with a bit of Loctite once we've got rid of the grease that's in that hole, and all is done. And there we have it. The new really maintained Flexofold prop. Quite like Flexofold. The reviews give them the best performance through the water too. Believe it or not, that transmits 75 horsepower into the water. It doesn't look like enough for it, but it does. So that's the end. We can now get wet as soon as I finish polishing the bow, but for all intents and purposes we're ready. Everything done. It's been a busy week. Anyway, we're done. So hopefully that was useful for those that want to look at how the propeller is assembled. Flexofold anyway. Bye for now.